can't even conceive of what this is. It's stranger than we can suppose. And so the cultural fury that characterizes the 20th century, the tremendous upheaval and obliterating of traditional culture, the tremendous movement of information electronically around the globe, the revolutions in physics and archaeology and linguistics, all of these things are acting to complexify our world to the point where it finally, I think, must be dawning on everyone that we are moving into a completely different kind of ontos of the relationship between man and nature. When one examines the I Ching, the King-Wen sequence, what is immediately apparent after only a few minutes of inspection is that it is not simply 64 hexagrams in some random association, but rather that the hexagrams occur in pairs. The second term of each pair is the inversion of the previous hexagram. And there are 8 cases where the natural structure of the hexagram makes its inversion ineffective in changing any of the lines. In other words, there are 8 cases where inverting a hexagram affects no change. The pairs of hexagrams that are then placed into opposing positions vis-a-vis each other add to 64. So what I believe is happening here is we are uncovering the secrets of a pre-Han occult school of numerological speculation. Now, an obvious question would be, why should the study of a 4,000-year-old Chinese divinatory system yield an insight into the structure of felt experience in the here and now? The reason, I believe, is that this pre-Zhou Chinese psychology that was being practiced was in fact immensely sophisticated even by modern standards, and that using techniques which would anticipate the later development of yoga in India, perhaps using psychotropic substances, these early Chinese Taoist shamans were penetrating to the very organizational foundation of matter itself. What this is essentially an energy structure drawn out of a mathematical analysis of the King-Wen sequence. Here is the fractal pattern that is typical of the entire wave. It happens to show up at certain levels. And the notion is that throughout the wave, when it is moving downward, novelty, density of connection is increasing. So the general conclusion from these screens is that novelty is being increased and conserved as we move through time. Now, for instance, in this screen, which is further closure with today, we see 562 million years, virtually the entire career of higher life forms on the planet. 8,500 years on the screen. The great Proto-Egyptian civilizations, Sumer, Chaldea, are strung out like pearls along this plunge. Egypt culminates that ancient hierarchical form of dominator society. Mycenaean pirates plunder Minoan Crete at this point. Here we have the Periclean age in Athens. Here we have the Augustinian age in Rome. Down here we have the Roman collapse, and then the oscillating around a mean in a high novelty domain that has characterized time since the fall of the Roman Empire. The Dark Ages is here. The 10th century Islam is here. The Black Death the discovery of America, the European Enlightenment, World War II. Adolf Hitler becomes Chancellor of Germany. The atom bomb is dropped on Hiroshima. The summer of love is up here. Then the Reagan era stretches down through here, and the moment that we're currently living through is right down in here. This is a span of time from 1991 to 1997. So upon the basis of this screen, we can make a series of predictions of a sort about what will go on in the 1990s. And what it's showing us is that there is a punctated, slightly recidivist movement coming across here through 92, an American election late in 92. Then this span of time here, in contrast to the domains around it, looks like a fairly conservative period, which ends spectacularly in May of 96 or so, when something happens which propels the entire wave into a deeper level of novelty than it has ever displayed before. What I'm going to show you here is the final terminus of the wave in 2012. Now remember, this is the same wave we've been looking at in all our discussion before, but finally the wave not only descends deep into novelty, it descends into the maximum possible depth of novelty, which is signified by the horizontal scale of the graph. In other words, and then it ceases. The wave is damped. If you think of the wave as an oscillation, well then this is its fixed point, and presumably its other fixed point is the birth of the universe. It's like a navigational device for a time machine that has yet to be built. When time machines are built, they will have to have something like this set in the dashboard to navigate through time, because time has many scales and many densities. So I'm confident that what we're doing here, creating models for new technologies that allow the human mind, if not eventually the human body, to explore higher dimensional space, not as an abstraction, but as the fabric of their own lives and the life of the culture and cultures in which we are all embedded. Now, one thing we haven't talked about that's probably worth talking about is somebody pointed out that the pattern recurs. That lays the basis for a theory of resonance. So that, for instance, here I'll stop this so we can talk about it. If you have a perfect memory, you may recall that many screens ago we looked at a pattern like this, and I said Çatalhöyük was here, and Chaldea, Sumer, and Egypt were arranged along here. Well, this is the lower resonance of that. The idea being then that historical periods are in fact shaped by the historical period that they are in resonance with, by this theory. So, for example, remember how I said the pyramids were built right down here, or the Great Pyramid at Giza? Well, if we look